Welcome ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to check out the solo stamina Templar build for the Greymore chapter. You can solo delves, public dungeons, world bosses, even 4-man dungeons with it if you really want to push yourself. Templar has a lot of great abilities and passives that just fit really well into the solo playstyle. I will showcase all that in a second, talking about gear, champion points, skills, and at the end I will also showcase the outfit. There is a written guide on the website with beginner setups and what ingredients you need to craft potions. It's all there, link in the description, and please don't forget to subscribe. So let's take a look at our setup here. The stat sheet. It is always important to have around 19k health on a solo setup because it prevents a lot of one-shots. So I really recommend pushing this up to like 19k. For now, with this build, with this tier 1 setup that I run, I put 20 points into health and 44 into stamina. If you are not at 19k, put more points into the health attribute. Very easy to bump up your health. Then you can see our base stamina recovery is 1400 almost. You should have around this, maybe 1300 is also okay. When I use my potion, I'm at 1.6k, and then Templars also have Restoring Focus, which gives more stamina recovery, and Repentance to drain stamina from dead bodies. I will talk about that later again. We have pretty decent amount of stamina because we use Robust on jewelry. You can use Bloodthirsty too if you really want to, up to you. Mundus Stone. Run the lever because it increases your physical penetration, which will increase your damage output the most. That's very important for a solo setup. Even more important, buff food. A lot of people underestimate buff food, so you want to run Lava Food Soup and Saltries on this setup because it gives you 5000 stamina and almost 500 stamina recovery. That's how we get to this number so easily. And the nice thing is, you can buy this in the guild store. It doesn't cost anything. It's so cheap to buy. There's plenty of it. So make sure to go buy it in the guild store. Very easy to find. Like 100 costs like 5000 gold. It's really cheap. Potions is a little bit a different story. Now if you have a lot of gold, you can probably use Essence of Weapon Power, because they give you a permanent uptime on Major Brutality, Major Savagery, and Major Endurance. 20% weapon damage, 10% weapon crit, and 20% stamina recovery. If you're a new player, you probably don't have that. You can just run Essence of Stamina. And then you're like, well, but now I don't have these buffs. So there is a easy workaround. Biting Chaps already kinda has Major Savagery built in. So every time you activate this ability, you get Major Savagery for 8 seconds. So technically you don't necessarily need Major Savagery like buff from the potions, but it's still nice to have because sometimes you might not always use this and then the uptime will drop. Secondly, you can run Momentum, either one of the morphs, probably Rally because it also heals, to gain the Major Brutality buff, and we will just replace it like this. Because you don't, like, this is kind of your flex spot. So yeah, that would be your workaround if you can't afford these potions. But more important, the buff food. You need this one. Make sure to get this one. In terms of race, all stamina based races work. I usually prefer Orc because it gives me 258 weapon damage and 2000 stamina. That's just so much extra resources and damage. Then we also get 1000 extra health. So if you're not an Orc, you might have to put more points into the health attribute. And once again, all stamina based races work. If you want, you could also be a werewolf with this setup. It's a nice to have thing if you really want to test it out. Looking at the different gear setups, so the tier 1 setup is Zogwin, Briarheart, Turbocone. This is pretty much the best in slot setup that you can get for a solo build, especially if you're pushing harder content. The tier 2 basically replaces Zorgwyn with Hunting's Rage because you can craft Hunting's Rage and it's just so much easier to get. And we use Bloodspawn instead of Turbokun, because Turbokun is a DLC dungeon, might be a little bit tricky. Bloodspawn is a base game dungeon, very easy to clear. Then the beginner setup has 2 crafted sets, Hunting's Rage and Ancient Dragon Guard. Very easy to get, you can just ask a buddy, like a guildmate, hey, can you please craft me these, and then you're good to go. The only difference in terms of like skill is that on the beginner setup we actually used Rally, because we probably just used the normal potions, so we need Rally for the weapon damage bonus. Now let me explain why I run this specific setup. You will see this on most of my solo stamina builds. Zorgwyn is just like the dream set. It has 2 weapon crit bonus, penetration bonus, and then when you deal critical damage you gain a stack of precision, increasing your weapon critical by 129 for 10 seconds, up to 10 stacks. So that's 1290, that's like 6%. I'm not sure why they keep showing this weird number because nobody understands it, but that's like, if you have 10 stacks you get 6% more weapon crit. And at max stacks you also gain minor force, increasing your critical damage done by 10%. So everything just evolves around the weapon crit with this. That's why it's so nice, and minor force really boosts our extra critical damage. The second set is Briarheart. This is my personal favorite. 2 weapon crit bonus, a max stamina bonus, and then when you deal critical damage, so again, it has to, like, it's connected to crit, you have a 25% chance to increase your weapon damage by 450 for 10 seconds. That's huge. But that's not even the juicy thing about this. While this effect is active, your critical strike heal you for 378 health. That might not sound like a lot, however, it doesn't have a cooldown, because we have so many abilities that tick every second and all of them can actually crit. That's a lot of like time to get this to proc. So this will constantly heal you. And believe it or not, it's pretty much your strongest heal you have in your kit, because it just procs so often, because we have so much different AoE abilities that they're constantly up. Very nice. And it gives 450 weapon damage, like, who doesn't want that? I forgot to mention, Zorgwyn drops in Fanglair, you can farm it in normal mode. Briarheart, you can buy it in the guild stores. You don't need gold, you don't need purple jewelry. All you need is blue one for the start. I got the full blue jewelry set and the blue weapon for like 10k. You can also farm it if you want, but it's very cheap in the guild stores, at least right now. It might go up in price. But yeah. Just get blue ones, they're usually very cheap. Because the difference between blue, purple and gold on jewelry is almost zero, believe it or not. Like, you get a little bit more max stamina. That's it. But the weapon damage enchantment that I have there, it will have the same value on a blue quality jewelry. The third set is a Maelstrom Bow. This is connected to Endless Hail. It will keep dealing damage even when we're on the front bar. And it will keep proccing our weapon damage enchantment on the infused bow. So we will have 100% uptime on this. That's like 452 free weapon damage, just like this. Very nice. The last set is Turbokun. So a lot of people might be confused, like, why would I run this? So you can pretty much run any monster set. However, if you're trying to do more difficult solo content, Turbokun is a lifesaver. Why? Because it applies minor maim. Enemies in the battle take 129 disease damage every 1 second and are afflicted with minor maim. You can ignore the damage, but minor maim reduces the enemy's damage by 15%. That doesn't sound like a lot, however, when you have 10, 15 enemies attacking you and all of them do 15% less damage, that's a lot of damage mitigation. And also on bosses, which have like really hard hitting abilities, 15% is a lot. So, the bile has an 8-second uptime. Minor maim has a 12-second. What basically happens is, I tested this, the bile lasts for 8 seconds on the ground, and minor maim reapplies every 1 second. So at 8 seconds you get another tick, and minor maim lasts 4 seconds. So you will have 12-second minor maim active, 4 seconds cooldown, and then the bile will proc again. So you have a 4-second cooldown where minor maim won't be up, basically. That's what you have to know. Because a lot of people think you can only have a 50% uptime because it's 8 seconds and 16 seconds cooldown. But it's in reality it's 12 seconds and 16 seconds. Tooltip is just a little bit confusing. If that one is too hard to get for you, you can use Bloodspawn. Gives you ultimate and extra resistances. If you want a damage monster set, run a damage monster set. It's up to you. But I hope I could explain why I actually like this. In terms of traits, all divine, which will boost our Mundustone effect, so we just get a lot more extra penetration. Then I have 6 medium, 1 heavy. I usually like to run this because first off, we will get 4% overall max resources from Undaunted Metal. And 1 extra health, or like 2% extra health from Juggernaut passive. That's why I run 6 medium, 1 heavy. I have 2 health glyphs. 1 on the head and 1 on the chest, so basically on the 2 big pieces. And everything else is stamina. If you want to get higher health, you can use more health glyphs here. It's up to you. Either use health glyphs or pump up your attribute. Both things will work. On the jewelry, I just have robust. You can use any trait here, like Bloodthirst, Infused if you want. I usually just leave it robust so I don't have to transmute it, and it doesn't make that big of a difference. All weapon damage, enchantments. The Briarheart, either a 2-handed axe or a 2-handed sword will suit you the best here with a sharpened trait, because again, more penetration, more damage. On the back bar, like I mentioned, an infused weapon damage bow, and again, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, you can get the Maelstrom bow in normal mode. Normal, Maelstrom Arena, very easy to get. And it's a lot of extra damage. If you can afford it, use damage health poisons, they deal a lot of extra damage, but if you don't, then it's not too big of a deal, you can just use an enchantment on the 2-handed weapon. Champion points, so you kinda can see like how everything synergizes with each other. We work a lot with weapon crit and just like damage mitigation, stuff like that. And also stack a lot of weapon damage with Briarheart and the infused weapon damage enchantment on the back bar. Stuff like that. Champion points. I have 300, 600 and max CP set up on the website as well. 64, 53, 52, 40, because we want a mix of everything, and 61 in Master at Arms. Then here tumbling. This is important, 61 points. We dodge roll a lot on stamina solo builds to avoid like one-shots. You can pretty much avoid all one-shots by dodge rolling. But again, the build can't save you from a one-shot. You need to know the mechanics of the boss. For me, that's easy because I know most of the mechanics, but if you engage a boss, you might have to learn this. But the more you play the game, the more like boss mechanics or patterns you will learn. Then it will get easy at some point. That's why tumbling can be important. Shadow Ward 31. Then we have 43 in Tenacity because I like to do heavy attacks. Mooncalf 56 for extra stamina recovery. 23, 56, 32, 49, 49, 48, 31, 61. The red champion points are very powerful. They will increase your damage mitigation so much. It's really nice. That's a champion point setup. I'm not gonna go much more in depth. You can just run this one or experiment around yourself. Up to you. Let's take a look at some of the passives of the class. There's a lot of useful things. Piercing Spear increases your critical damage by 10%. So again, another critical damage boost. You need to have an Adric Spear ability slotted. On the front bar, that's Biting Traps. And on the back bar, that is Empowering Sweeps. Spear Wall. Gain minor protection for 6 seconds, reducing damage taken by 8% when you activate Chaps. That's really nice free damage mitigation. Who doesn't want that? It's nice. Burning Light. This is kind of like a extra proc damage. When you deal damage with Adric Spear ability, again, Biting Chaps, you have a 25% chance to deal an additional 5k physical damage. This will actually go up, like if you have all procs, probably goes up to like 6k. This effect can occur once every 0.5 seconds. So by just activating Biting Chaps, we get extra proc damage for free, we get minor protection. Then, because we have it slotted, we also get this. Balanced Warrior gives us a little bit more spell resistance and extra weapon damage. Dawn's Wrath. This doesn't really matter. Then Prism. It's nice to have. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability generates free ultimate. So if you use this, you get a little bit extra ulti gen. Okay, not bad. This one is useless. And the Restoring Spirit is really nice. Reduces the health, magic and stamina and ultimate cost of your abilities by 5%. I usually have them all activated, but if you just want the passives that you really need, I have the list on the website where I exclude all the useless ones. And then there's just a lot of extra healing stuff, like increase the healing effect from your Restoring Light abilities by up to 12. Very nice. While standing in your own cleansing ritual, Rune Focus Rite of Passage, a re-effect, and for up to 4 seconds after leaving them you gain minor mending, increasing your healing down by 8%. Also increases the amount of damage you can block by 10% for the duration. Like, these passives just like, jeez, that's really nice. And then we have Lightweaver, doesn't really matter. And this one doesn't matter as well. When we're looking at the two-hander passives, there's a lot of nice things too. Your light and heavy attacks damage up to 3 other nearby enemies, so it has splash damage. You hit one guy, it hits several other people around him. Then we have heavy weapons. If you run an axe, you have a chance to apply a bleed on the enemy. Extra proc damage. Cost reduction, really, you kinda want this. Follow up. Now this, when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, your next direct damage attack used within 7 seconds deals an additional 10%. Guess that's a nice perk to have, especially if you use Reverse Slice or Brawler. Now Battle Rush. Increases your stamina recovery by 30% for 10 seconds. So while we only might have like 1600, once we kill a target, this will jump up to 2000 because of this passive. It's so strong. Obviously you need to kill something for it. The bow passives don't really matter that much. Ranger is kinda important because you get 15% cost reduction on your Endless Hail. And Hasty Retreat. This gives you Major Expedition 4 seconds. For 4 seconds, increasing your speed by 30%. So you wanna run dodge roll on the bow bar and you will get speed buff for 4 seconds. If you do that on the front bar, you will not get the speed buff. Medium armor has a lot of nice perks. You gotta get them all. Extra weapon crit for just having medium armor equipped. You get extra stamina recovery, stamina cost reduction on abilities. This here doesn't really matter that much. 15% weapon damage, and then reduces the cost of roll dodge by 24%. Very nice. Like I mentioned before, heavy armor, 2% extra health, and a little bit constitution to get some resources back and extra resistances. And most important is Juggernaut. You don't really need the other ones, but this one is nice to have because we have one heavy piece. I want to quickly talk about Consuming Trap in case you still lack sustain. You could run Consuming Trap instead of Power of the Light. Why? This here scales off your highest stats, so it costs Magicka, so you don't have to use stamina to cast it. And what it also deals physical damage quite a lot. And when the enemy dies, you get 6,400 stamina back from one dead enemy. It's just, I don't know, this is really strong. You could use this. We have enough sustain, but this would be another option that you should keep in mind. Fighter skilled abilities. We have Dawnbreaker on the front bar. You can either use this ulti or the one on the back bar. They're very low cost. This here costs 118, this 71. The nice thing if we have this here, Slayer, we get a little bit extra weapon damage. And it's always nice to have Banish the Wicked, so you generate 9 ultimate when you kill an undead, Daedra or werewolf. And this as well, skill tracker, if you use Dawnbreaker, just more damage. Other than that, we don't really use any ability here. Undaunted, I recommend getting this just to get a little bit extra resources. If you don't have it, not a big deal. But yeah, 4% overall magical stamina and health is nice. Let's talk about Echoing Vigor. Why do I run Echoing Vigor and not Resolving Vigor? The reason is simple. Resolving Vigor for this solo PvE build overheals for so much, it's completely pointless to run it. It also only lasts 4 seconds, the other morph. Whereas Echoing Vigor heals for more than enough. Like it's already too much that we get from this heal alone. And it lasts 10 seconds. So 2.5 times more than the Resolving Vigors. So I can cast this once and then actually deal damage, reapply dots and so on. After 10 seconds I cast this again. Whereas with the other heal, I will have to constantly reapply it every 4 seconds. That's why you want to choose this morph for this specific setup. You can also play around with both. If you like the other one more, use the other one. Racial passives, I explained them already. Alchemy. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. Medicinal use. So when you look at your potions, you might be, well, mine only lasts like 30 to 33 seconds. Why do these last 47? That's because of this passive. On every character that you want to do combat with, you need to get this. It's just so powerful. It will provide you an uptime on the potions 100% of the time. Because the potion cooldown is 45 seconds. This here lasts 47. I have a grind guide for that on the website as well. It takes like 15 minutes to level up. Like in the crafting section. That's all about the passives. Like I said, Templar has a lot of juicy things that just synergize really well together. Let's take a look at the abilities and why I choose this specific setup. Brawler, this is my favorite ability. When I actually hit one enemy, I get the 7k shield. Like, just like this. For free. If I hit like 3, 4, 5 enemies, I get the 20k shield. It's so strong. That's why I always recommend two-hander for solo setups, because you can't just spam this. An enemy hits you for 20k, your health is not even gonna move most of the time. Because you will absorb it with this shield. On top of that, it deals really nice damage. But you can see here, the second part of the text, you also gain a damage shield that absorbs 4,521 damage for 6 seconds. Each enemy hit increases the damage shield's strength by 50% up to 300%. Very nice. Power of the Light. I like to call this your flex spot. You can pretty much run whatever you want, like I mentioned before. You could run Rally here. You could run a Gap Closer. You could run Dizzy Swing to get like off balance and stuff like that. I just run this because it deals extra damage, it's very cheap, and it also reduces the enemy's physical resistance by a little bit. But once again, if you feel like you want to use something else, go for it. You can. No problemo. It just looks really nice on top of that. Biting Chaps, this is your main spammable. So once again, this always hits 4 times. And like I mentioned, it has a lot of side effects because of like passives that also proc. You really want this on the bar, and it deals really good damage. It hits 4 times, it gives you major savagery, in case you don't have the expensive potions. Nice thing to have. Let's actually see. 43, 53. 10% is a lot. On top of that, it's also AoE damage. So you have damage on the main target and then also on enemies around you. So it's really nice AoE damage as well. But we usually use Brawler for AoE. Reverse Slice, this is your execute. You can target the low health enemy and then it will actually deal splash damage to enemies around it, which also deals a buttload of damage, and it's also really cheap to use. Echoing Vigor, this is our heal, very easy to keep up, 10 seconds, no problem. Like, get used to it. Every 10 seconds you want to reapply it. Most of the times, even if you forget it and you have Briarheart, you will still not lose health because Briarheart will heal you on top. There's a few other things. Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is one of the ultimates you could use. Deals really nice physical damage. And it also, when you activate it, you get 300 extra weapon damage for 20 seconds. Back bar. Empowering Sweep ultimate. So this one is really nice. It deals a lot of damage. It only costs 71 ultimate points, so you can constantly use it. Swing your Aedric Spear around with Holy Vengeance, dealing 8400 physical damage to all nearby enemies and an additional 4k physical damage every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Duration is extended by 2 seconds for each enemy hit. So if you have 6-7 enemies around you, it will extend its duration. Then it will pretty much pulse. And if you hit several targets, the pulsing will last longer. You also gain Empower, so your light attacks deal a little bit more damage. I usually recommend using this, because you can just activate it so often and it's just an extra damage over time effect that you have. Repentance. Now when you have a dead body, you saw this at the start of the video, like this green beam that comes towards to you. You can drain dead bodies. And when you drain a dead body, you gain 3000 health and 3000 stamina. That's like, you can basically go from 0 stamina to 100% with one button press, more or less. It will give you so much. I think it has a cap of 6, so you might have to use it twice, I don't know. But yeah, it's a lot of extra stamina that you get when you have enough bodies on the ground. It is on the back bar, so the secondary effect doesn't really matter that much, but it also increases your stamina recovery a little bit. Restoring Focus, this here is your like most important thing to constantly keep up. Create the Rune of Celestial Protection. The rune grants you major resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280. That's a lot of extra resistances, and you gain 240 stamina every 1 second, even when you're outside. So you just gotta drop this, and you will keep receiving the extra stamina. I can show you this. Let me just use some abilities. Now I'm blocking, and you see, my stamina still goes slowly up. Usually when I block, I have 0 stamina recovery, but as long as the rune is on the ground, it doesn't really matter. It will keep going up, because the rune just ignores that. It's a lot of extra stamina recovery to get. And then, standing within the rune increases physical and spell resistance granted by 50%. So when I have this active, let's say in the front bar, I'm at 22.8, I go into the rune, 25.4. So I actually get more tanky when I'm this. So when I'm fighting a boss, and I stand in the rune, I will gain more resistances. Really nice. Just a nice extra cherry on top. It barely costs anything, 772 stamina, and the duration is 20 seconds. Very easy to keep up. Razor Caltrops. Why do I run this? On solo builds, we don't have the luxury of a tank like applying major fracture, so we have to do that ourselves. The Templar doesn't really have the option through class abilities, so you want to get caltrops if possible. Because you see the second text. Enemies who take damage from the caltrops, you have major fracture applied to them, reducing their physical resistance by 5280 for 4 seconds. This lasts a total, like when you cast this once, you will have major fracture on the enemy for 14 seconds. Because the ability itself lasts 10 seconds, and on 10 seconds you get another tick of major fracture on the enemy, which will last another 4 seconds. So yes, the duration of the dot is 10 seconds, but major fracture is 14 seconds. Fits really well to Endless Hail, so you can always reapply these two together, because they have the same duration. Ritual of Retribution. This is another pure gem in the Templar kit. It costs magicka, so we don't have to use stamina when we cast it. Look at the circle. And now, even better, this actually scales off your highest offensive stats. And because that's stamina, like weapon damage, look at it. While in the area, you and allies are healed for 2177, while enemies take 2300 magic damage. That's a lot of extra damage for casting a magic ability, and the heal you get on top of that is also really strong. So that's another small heal over time that you can add up on top of your other heals and Briarheart. Very nice. Always keep this up. It also cleanses harmful effects, FYI, so if you have like a debuff on you, you could use this to cleanse it away, like a snare for example, or something like that. The last ability is Endless Hail. This is just a really nice damage over time effect, both for AoE and single target. Like I mentioned before, it also procs your Maelstrom, Thunderous Volley set, and the weapon damage enchantment on the front bar. Like I mentioned, this here is your flex spot, so you could use other abilities. If you want another ultimate, go for it. If you want the gap closer, this is swing, go for it. Like you could run like this. Now I want to mention heavy attacks. A lot of people don't know because the game doesn't tell you. Heavy attacks restore resources. So when I use... Let me use up some stamina. So when now it regens, I do a heavy attack. Have you seen it goes up a lot faster? So you gain like 3000 stamina every time you do a heavy attack. Now you could use Dizzy Swing. Why Dizzy? It deals nice damage, but that's not why we want it, because our damage ability is Chaps. It sets enemies off balance for 7 seconds. When enemies set off balance and you do a heavy attack, you restore twice the amount of resources. So 6000 stamina with one heavy attack. So once you understand this mechanic, resource management will just become so much easier. Good players often do a heavy attack. You won't really notice it because they're pretty fast when you weave that stuff. But yeah, often if people drop low on stamina, they do heavy attacks. Restore it or like activate a potion or something like that. Yeah. Before we check out the outfit, I just want to like go over the most important things again. Buff food, you need this one. Potions if you can afford it, weapon power pots, nice, otherwise stamina, the cheap version. They drop from monsters, so you can also buy them from the guild stores. You gotta get used to this. With medicinal use, so you have a full uptime. If you want to become a good player, you gotta choke potions almost every 45 seconds. It's just how it is in endgame. You gotta get used to it, because they give you such a big benefit to all your stats. It's kinda nuts. Around 19k health, if possible. Race itself, all stamina based races work. Dodge roll is your friend, your biggest, like, your easiest way to avoid damage. And once again, the build can only help you as much. For me, when I go, like, I can solo veteran dungeons if I want to, because I know all the boss mechanics. So for me, it's easy to dodge roll a one-shot. For you, when you're new, probably not, because you don't know the mechanics. But the more you will play, the more mechanics you will learn. So at some point, it will become easy as well. So it's like, okay, this is a heavy attack from the enemy, I better dodge roll. It is a medium attack, I can just block it, or I can just apply a shield. Whenever I go to the back bar, I usually use Brawler. So I gain a damage shield, which the enemy has to eat through first. And then I can apply my dots. And by the time I'm on the front bar again, my shield is probably gone, but health is barely touched. Keeping up your buffs and debuffs is very, very important. Most people die because they usually apply their defensive things like the rune or the healing stuff once and then they forget about it. This stuff runs out after 10 to 20 seconds. If you don't reapply it, you will not benefit from the effects. So learning to keep up your buffs and debuffs is very important. More important than actually dealing damage. Because if you don't have any heals, you're going to die sooner or later. Knowing how to restore stamina through restoring focus, repentance, through heavy attacks, potions. There's so many ways to restore resources. I explain this on the website as well. Your healing, Ritual of Retribution, Echoing Vigor, Briarheart. A lot of extra healing you have. As long as you keep that stuff up. So there's a lot of things, as you can see. And as a new player, it won't be easy. But you all, like, just play around a little bit. Do overland, then try some public dungeons, then some delves. If you really want to challenge, go normal 4-man dungeons, veteran dungeons. You can do it. If you're learning how to play the game, you will get more and more experience. So yeah, let's check out the outfit. On this setup, I had this helm, alcasthq. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, to be honest. Moongrave Fane arm. Then we have the bracers, the guards, cuirass, belt, and the Yokudan boots. So all this is Moongrave, and then the boots are Yokudan. The sword is Saison. The back bar is just a normal Maelstrom. And the colors, Divine Gold and Cold Harbor Ash Black to get this kind of setup. You can always join our Discord community or ask me during a live stream on twitch.tv/alcasthq. If you want, all the links are in the description. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you want to watch a few other videos, you can find them here. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.